Sharp, Bracket Sunday. Of course, you hear him with the Gary and Matt show on 1620. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, as we are ready to rock and roll for a Sunday live here on the Average Joe Sports Show. So find and watch, tell a buddy about us on YouTube. Like and subscribe there. Like and check us out as well on Twitter, AJ Sports Radio. Both ways you can watch. How we feeling? We need to see your shoes, Sharpie. Are you wearing shoes right now?
I do not have shoes on, but
okay.
Let's see here. We got.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, the gold accents are nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's two things I found out with going to the NCAA tournament. One, you get a ton of gear. Like Adidas is just churning out Omaha basketball gear, and there's a lot of people that want to play golf with you.
Yeah. I've always wanted to play golf with all three of you. And sometimes you'll pick the phone. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm repping Doan because Uncle Mark's Tigers are 15-2 on the diamond this year. So, Elijah, you are repping the Avs.
Mm-hmm.
And Doleman, you are repping
50 Shades of Gray.
Yeah. Well played. I was going to go with Brioni, but okay. But we'll get our starting five shout outs. Appreciate all the average Joes that have checked in on us every Sunday with this adventure, the Sunday Live. And guys, it's a good day. I think the weather is going to be pretty good here. Bill, we were thinking about you. We were wondering if you were going to go single face mask and a mouthpiece, just because of the crap you've been through. Was checking on Vogel as well this morning. I know the southeastern part of the country has been just decimated by tornadoes and storms, and you're not far from all of it.
Yeah, there's a couple tornadoes west of us, northwest of us that touched down and did some pretty bad damage. I'm down in the Hattiesburg area, Doc Sadlerville. He talked about it so much, I decided to come down and hang out and see what all the excitement was about.
They got a statue for Marcus Dupree or no?
It was pretty nasty. Instead of getting to watch basketball yesterday, there was 5 hours of local weather action on the channel. So, but everything's okay where I'm at, and life's good. The Mississippi Queen's doing okay, so we're all good down here. But yeah, the couple places not far from here are pretty bad. So
thinking of those folks dealing with that for sure. Guys, saw something funny, sent it to you yesterday, and I'm going to revisit it here. It was on one of the social media platforms. So who are you partying with if and when your team makes it or wins in the NCAA tournament? Sharpie, your team's made it to the NCAA tournament with Omaha Mavs basketball. Doleman and Elijah and I have watched Nebraska basketball for a lot of years, and I hope a year from now, Fred's, a 6 seed or better. Not saying he has to be. I'm hoping he compiles that type of team for Nebraska basketball fans. But the list includes some of the who's who of cinema partying. So you've got Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds. Starts off the list. You have Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Stifler, of course, from American Pie fame. Brother Bluto from the Delta House of Animal House. There's McLovin, Frank the Tank.
I live that, Eddie. By the way.
I love that. You have Doug and Bob McKenzie, the two hosers. Alan, Harold and Kumar. Donger Need Food from 16 Candles. The Dude, of course, Mr. Bridges, Cheech and Chong, Bender, Bernie, and Ox from Stripes. I will show this up here because why not go ghetto Sunday morning?
You want me to pull this up on the stream? I'll pull this up on the stream.
Yes. Okay. Just like you, son of a.
Hey, we're a high budget operation.
We are. See, just look under Doleman's Twitter handle. Your name and business here. I love that. I can't wait till there's one Sunday morning we all pull the Wayne's World where we're wearing our own tracksuit with sponsor here.
We'll look like NASCAR if everything goes right.
Little bit, but selfishly, who am I partying with when Nebraska wins that first NCAA tournament game? I'm probably going to go with Bluto, just because he can dance a little bit. It is dancing Sunday. He can clearly recycle with what he did with that glass bottle of Jack Daniels, and he knows how to have a good time. There we go. Who you partying with? I think my top seed is Bluto, and my dark horse would probably be the dude. Just missing the cut for me is Frank the Tank.
Look, here's the deal, though. Right now, and for the past 100+ years, when it comes to Nebraska basketball, we've been with Bernie on Selection Sunday for the most part. Right?
Yes, we have.
Look, I went to college pretty much with every Bluto and Frank the Tank living in the Theta Xi house. So that's part of my past anyway. So I know what I'm getting with those guys. But look, Nebraska basketball has been the Bernie of Selection Sunday. So I think that's what I'm going with. What I'm used to.
Okay, Sharpie, you got a draft pick?
I would think right now in my current state, I would say the dude.
That's what I was going to go for.
Yeah.
Yep.
Elijah,
I think it's Frank the Tank for me.
Okay.
As I get older into my mid-20s, there's a lot of relatable lines.
Mid-20s.
I do want to go to.
He just turned 26 on Thursday. He's a grizzled old vet.
I do want to go to Home Depot on a Sunday, actually.
Oh, God.
Well, and there were any Bed Bath & Beyonds open. I know you'd be there too. All right. But submit your pick into the stream, who you party with once and if and when Nebraska wins that basketball game in March. Cheech and Chong is Game Dog's pick.
Yes.
Why not? Who doesn't want to think we're still driving when we're parked? But no, that a little fun this morning was in order. So, fellas, how we feeling here? I've seen different. I was looking at The Athletic this morning and seen some different shifting. It kind of looked like yesterday, basketball-wise, you've got a fight for that number one seed between Auburn and Tennessee. Auburn's kind of lost 3 of their last 4. Florida, Tennessee today in the SEC championship. Wisconsin surviving Michigan State, and then Michigan on a last-second take to the rim to persevere. So it's Michigan and Wisconsin, the flannel battle a little bit later before Selection Sunday. But this day is always pretty juiced. And remember last year how exciting it was for Nebraska. It'll be really exciting for the Nebraska women today because they're going to be dancing. But 2 out of 3, I guess, ain't bad. Creighton hung a little bit and then got drilled. St. John's looks pretty fabulous, as physical as they are. Yeah. I've done a 180. I used to like to kind of poke fun at Pitino, but that guy's incredible. He is absolutely incredible. I know, Bill, you spent a little bit of time around him, as have you, Sharpie, in your guys' college basketball history. And I guess, are either of you surprised that he has done what he's done continually?
I don't think so. I mean, he knows how to coach. Look at, how many Hall of Fame coaches take a step down to go to a place like Iona and then take a step up? I think if he doesn't leave Kentucky, he's considered the greatest college basketball coach of all time.
Even over Wooden?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
If he doesn't leave Kentucky,
he's on my Mount Rushmore still with what his career is right now. He's in the top 4 for me. Success everywhere he's gone. Fantastic at Louisville. He went and turned Iona into a year in, year out NCAA tournament contender. And now St. John's. He's got them rolling. Where has he failed? In college basketball, where has he failed?
The only failures he's had is off the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the floor, he can coach, and he just seems like the ideal fit for being a New Yorker, coaching a New York team, to get a New York program back in a city that hosts the Big East. I don't know. I've talk about doing a 180, Schmitty. They've got a couple of flaws. They don't shoot the three real well. They're not necessarily consistently good at the free throw line, but man, they play hard. And they about 10 minutes, and it kind of was this way last night, is they shut the water off. And all of a sudden it goes from a tight game to the next thing you know, St. John's is up 13-14. You're like, how did it get this way? If they get friendly whistles in the NCAA tournament, because they like to put their hands on each other, like the other team. Yeah, I mean, if they
New York style,
if they get friendly whistles and they let them play, then they've got a chance to play for a couple of weekends. I mean, I think they'll be a popular 2 seed that ends up in San Antonio.
It's amazing what he's done there, and to be essentially banished from basketball, and there was question as to whether he'd ever get back into the game. I did a game at Louisville, not that he was coaching there, but it was at the Cardinal Inn, and the only thing they wanted to tell me was just down the hall, that's the room. He was a punchline, and to see what he's done, St. John's was the perfect. Iona was the perfect place for him to get back in, and then to get back in on the main stage, to do it at St. John's. I think that really does put him in. I think Gary's right. He's potentially right now you could just say he's maybe the greatest college basketball coach to do what he did at Kentucky and then at the arch rival, is pretty amazing. But he's got that St. John's team playing with a New York attitude. They are perfect for that city right now. You got Spike Lee on the sideline high-fiving guys like he's turned his back on the Knicks. They got it rolling. I mean, if they play in a friendly region, they might have a few folks there, but it's amazing what he's done there. And yesterday was really emblematic of the kind of style of basketball that they'll bring to the NCAA tournament at the right time. Like, I look at Auburn, and I think up until 2 weeks ago, people were ready to crown Auburn as the national champion, that they were far and away better than everybody else, and no one was close. And now you've lost 3 of your last 4. I think the Texas A&M loss for them was the eye-opener to the rest of the country. Like, if you punch the bully in the mouth, they might fold like the kid in A Christmas Story, right? So I think that they're losing 3 of their last 4. Right. I think losing 3 of their last 4 is not good. And I look at a team like Duke. I look at a team like St. John's playing well at the right. Houston. 3 weeks ago, I'd have said this is Auburn. Right now, I think it's kind of up for grabs amongst maybe 4 or 5 teams.
I've been really impressed with what Duke's done out in the ACC without Cooper Flagg. Goes down, people kind of, I mean, you run up against a North Carolina team that needed it more than you did, probably wanted it more than you did. You go up 24 and you're able to hold on to that. I don't think Duke was as locked in for that last 15 minutes of that game as they should have been. I think they kind of thought, okay, we've done our work here. But go and secure that win without Cooper Flagg. And then yesterday against Louisville, I mean, they go on that 10-0 run in the second half and never look back. Like, I've been impressed with that Duke team. I've been impressed with them all year long, but I was questioning what they could do if Cooper Flagg wasn't on in the NCAA tournament. And now we've seen him in the ACC tournament without Cooper Flagg. I've been impressed with that Duke team.
Florida's going to be scary.
Yeah.
I mean,
Golden's money. He does a great job.
That's another one that 3 weeks ago, it's all Auburn. And now Tennessee, Florida, throw them in the mix too.
Yep.
Well, I brought up Pitino because clearly situation, coaching, and kind of what you demand matter. And the 180 topic, you've got several sports that are trying to flip back to what their high level's been with Nebraska, specifically baseball's trying to get a consistency. Tough one at UCLA again. They got the doors blown off them last night. Basketball clearly on our mind today with Selection Sunday and where we thought Nebraska basketball could be just less than a month ago. Then, of course, the topic of football with spring ball and this year 3. And we are going to get our starting 5 shout-outs in here. Uncle Larry is in. Walter from just south of Philly checks in already with a take on football. Anything less than 9-3 in the regular season's unacceptable.
Walter had something to say, damn it. And that's what he's going with right on.
I love it. I don't want to hear any more bleeping excuses. Arlo's here. Love having Justin in. I'm in. So has the university ever thought about starting a men's horseshoe team? At least they're close there. Hey, right on. Kobe is here. Kobe, good to have you. Justin already checking in. Coach Brandon, Patrick, Mike in all the way from Washington. Good work. Andrew is here. Brian Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, in. David checks in as well. The other Rocco is in. It might be the Rocco or it could be the other Rocco. Unclear on that. David checks in. It says medium time listener. First time checking in. David, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And Charles is here. Dave is in. And Andrew shouting out, Elijah, let's go Stars. Like that.
Our team they're legit this year. Gonna try to make it out for the playoffs. They're gonna be hosting. I mean, top team in the whole league. So that starts.
Yeah, they won their 40th last night.
Mm-hmm.
I just want everybody to know that the last time they won the regular season title, which is the Anderson Cup in the USHL, the play-by-play guy was a great dude.
Yeah, he was fantastic, and I wish I would have knew him better because some of us dropped $50 a ticket to take his girlfriend at the time. So
that shows you how long it's been since like the Lincoln Stars have won the regular season.
I mean, and you go through like my time, high school, college, the Stars. No offense, they weren't very good. You get in there and there's 250 people. They're filling that ice box up every single night.
That's awesome.
Good for them. So let's take on this 180 discussion here. Where on the dial do you think things are at? And I think if I've got to pick with football, baseball, and basketball, I think despite this season, you've had back-to-back plus 500 years overall and an NCAA tournament. So, but it is year 6. It's not year 3 for Fred. Football got bowling in year 2. So that is a nice kind of right direction dial-wise, and plenty of baseball season left for Will and company. But it's been tough with 2 of the newbies from the Big Ten. Who's further ahead right now? Who's behind? Who's kind of just hovering? And I think football. That's hard to say. You get an NCAA tournament in a bowl game. Everyone gets to go to a bowl game, typically. Not everybody gets to go to the NCAA tournament yet. So. I don't know. I think, do I dare say hoops was until this year further ahead than football? Now is football pulled ahead? Do you guys care? I'm just throwing it out.
No. So here, let me turn this a little bit different angle, because there is, Fred, last year the NCAA tournament, what today was like last year. We were all excited. They had just come off making the semifinals of the Big Ten tournament. They had an extremely likable team. And then you saw Texas A&M pop up on the screen, and we all remember the reaction of the players that were at Hoiberg's house. And then we know what the result was in Memphis. And then football getting to a bowl game, I don't know. They're almost like even, but I think moving forward, it's who do you believe in more?
That's good. That's a better way to put it.
Like who has the plan that, and we haven't really heard from, Fred since last Sunday after the game. Who has the plan that keeps you engaged?
Or the resources.
Yeah. Well,
I'm saying what you spent on football.
I mean, at some point you have to coach.
Yeah.
Just because Nebraska's NIL and basketball is not that great, that doesn't account for them losing close games.
That's fair.
I mean, they have enough good players that they should have won some of those close games that would make an entire difference. I mean, look at the bubble, guys. That's what the frustrating thing about watching this past week was. The bubble is so bad that Nebraska just needed to beat Iowa and probably win one game in Indianapolis, and they would get into the tournament. They might be the 68th team, but they would be into the tournament. Mm-hmm. I think at some point you just, it comes down to coaching, execution, everybody involved. But I think it comes down to who do you believe has the plan moving forward to get to where the reality meets the expectations?
Right now, I like Matt Rule's plan. I like Matt Rule's plan. I like Matt Rule's hires. I like his reset with his staff. And you've got higher profile gets, be it the portal or through recruiting. I mean, you don't have a Dylan Raiola on the basketball court right now. Maybe you go get one, but right now you have a lot of pieces to play with right now if you're Nebraska football, and you've made that decision to go get some really proven guys on special teams and as offensive coordinator, 2 spots specifically. So there's that. And I think, I like Fred's staff, so I'm not knocking them at all. But right now, from a plan standpoint, Rule's really looked at it. Rule has said, okay, I need this from you, quarterback. I know we talked about it a little bit yesterday from a commitment standpoint, body-wise. And the other part of that is I'm going to have it all here for you with strength, nutrition, portal aggressiveness, and acquisition. So Fred did it after year 3 with his reset, realizing you need to win a certain way or have a certain type chemistry. Rule didn't wait past year 3. He did it after year 2, and it was some probably really tough decisions he had to make.
Well, look at the roster turnover in college basketball now. And Fred had to turn over 9 players, 9 new players last year. He's going to have 7. I mean, this last season, they've got 7, probably 9 new players come in again this next season. Look at that's 75% of your roster almost. What are they expanding it to 15 players now or something? Or there's something with the roster manipulation. Think about that. 70% of your roster year after year after year has to be turned over in your Nebraska that's trying to gain some traction off of what was a magical season in 24. And then you turn all that over and you got to do it again. And you got to do it. You got to hope that half of those players that you bring in of the next 7 to 9, that half of them are going to be productive and going to be able to get the job done for you in the year or maybe 2 years that they have left. They hit a home run with Bryce Williams, no question about it. And he got paired with the guy in Juwan Gary, who was a transfer, but stuck around for 3 seasons of impactful play with Nebraska. But now they're both going to be gone. They've been, along with Tominaga a year ago, the heart and soul of that team. And Bandamel, I thought, was a really good player, but injuries hurt him. But imagine if Matt Rule had to turn over 70% of his roster every year. Nebraska, for the most part, has some pretty good players foundationally in the football program. And you're looking, okay, where do we need to bring in a player in the wide receiver room? Okay, we bring in 2 or 3 wide receivers with a new coach. There's a lot of turnover there. We're standing pat with what we have at the running back position. We bring in a couple of offensive linemen to help out that room that already has 15 players in it already. So you're finding where you need to complement in football. In basketball, it is transformational. And Nebraska is not the only one in this. I shouldn't say all, but there's a lot of programs that year after year after year are going to have to transform who they are and try to find them. I'm curious about Louisville and the job that what Pat Kelsey has done in a short period of time.
They're 8-24 last year.
Right. Okay. So you bring in the right players and you bring in Chucky and you've got the right. What happens when there's some graduation and players leave and it gets a little more lucrative? How much turnover is a program like Louisville? How are they going to maintain going from 8-24 to 20? What are they, 26-7 now or something like that?
27-7. Snetley.
Okay, 27. Right. Yeah. How do they keep it going? They struck gold with Kelsey, and he struck gold with what he brought in. Dusty May did it at Michigan. How do you keep it going in this year of college basketball? When are guys going to stay? Are they going to go? Are they going to work? That, to me, is the big mystery about college basketball and trying to have any sustained success if your name is not Duke.
Well, the teams that are successful are the ones that, as you talk about, Bill, nail their transfer portal evaluations, get the right guys in. And that's been a question mark with Fred. He's batting, it feels like, about 500 in the portal every single year? And it's hard to go out and bat 1,000 every single year after year after year. You have some teams that are going out and doing it in a 1-year basis. We'll see how sustainable it is. But I think Fred's transfer portal acquisitions, and could this be down to NIL? Could this be down to evaluations? I think there's a little bit of both going on there.
And here's my fear.
You're just not batting well enough. It's like the Husker baseball team. You're not getting on base enough with the transfer portal guys.
Here's my fear for Gary's Mavs. It's a great year for the Mavs. How many coaches are looking around that program going, you know what? You've developed over your first couple of years of college. Why don't you come and join our program? It happened at South Dakota State and Shireman, or Sam Griesel leaving, a couple of years ago, leaving North Dakota State and coming down to Nebraska. That's what I hate about college basketball, is these programs that are developing high school players into becoming solid college players for 2 years, and then it's treated like a junior college. And in these mid-major programs that build up and are great stories, and they get plucked and they leave. And those star players at an Omaha or North Dakota State or wherever end up at some big school. Yeah, great. They're making money and it brought some notoriety to those programs. But I would love to see UNO have continuity with what they're building right now. And that's just a great example of what we have right before us with Gary. And I hope that they can sustain that. And I'm not sure that they can in this era.
Okay. So that goes back to coaching. I mean, sometimes coaches are just really good coaches. I don't care what roster you hand them. Okay. Some coaches become even better coaches when they have more resources. You go from the College of Charleston to Louisville and you have more resources. You're a good coach to begin with. Now you're on a bigger stage and you can say, hey, I'm a good coach no matter what. Look at Ben McCollum. Ben McCollum is climbing Division II to Drake. He got more resources. He could be scary at the next level because the man can coach. He would have even more resources. Back to Omaha. The one thing I think might be a little bit unique about Omaha is you had and I agree with what you're saying, Bill, is the high majors treat mid majors like junior college.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that's accepted, but you get it, because then the mid majors turn around and they try and get the reclamation projects that didn't work out at a Power 5 and that want to play basketball and maybe at a place that gives them more opportunity to play basketball. But one thing Omaha did, they got a brand new head coach 3 years ago, and his initial recruiting class is all together. So there are 3 day one guys that are in their third year in the program that are starting. Then they brought in a junior college All-American from last year, and then they got a transfer who is their big man, a transfer from Lindenwood, who is from Congo. They lost Frankie last year, which was kind of, you thought Frankie's got one more year, let him go, but they celebrated it. Instead of fighting it, they celebrated it because they're trying to find the next Frankie Fiddler that'll come to Omaha and go, hey, this staff got Frankie paid. If I come there for, a little bit, will I be the next guy to get paid? And even though it sucks, you have to embrace it at this level, and you churn it over one after another. And I think it makes better coaches at this level, not just the X's and O's, but how they become GMs, essentially trying to manage their roster, and Omaha might be pretty fortunate because, it's going to be a cool day today, and there's going to be new fans and fans that have been Omaha basketball fans for a while. They're going to look at the guys that are there and they're going to wonder, man, are there going to be 8 guys gone next year? They could have a chance to bring back 4 of their 5 starters. They have 2 junior college players. Their 2 top players are Markel Sutton and J.J. White. Both are junior college guys, so they get an extra year. Markel will be gone, and he should. He's going to go get paid. He's this year's version of Frankie Fiddler. J.J. White may come back. So it forces you to be better at roster management, but also to manage in a much lesser extent from the Power 5 your NIL. And Omaha's bull market NIL is pretty good. Guys, they offered more to Frankie Fiddler than Nebraska did last year. So, I don't think Omaha's going to go away. But when you step up and you play Power 5, you do have to wear the hat of the basketball coach, the GM, and be an elite recruiter. But I'm telling you, I think the schools that will make progress and stay in the upper echelon will be schools that still develop those high school kids. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's going to get a Cooper Flagg, which he's a one and done. But the Nebraska, and I know it's not in Fred's DNA. They have to find a way to develop high school kids. Nick Janowski, Quentin Rhymes, I think is going to be a really good player. They've got to play. when you get here, they got to play. I still can't figure out why Janowski redshirted, but hopefully it pays off this upcoming year. But I think at Nebraska, you got to get the portal guy, the right portal guy, but also you got to find a way to develop the high school kid, because he might be more apt to be with you for multiple years than other people in your program.
That's what you got to have. You've got to have just the right mix that you just laid out. But can you start finding and getting high school guys that can come in and help and stick around? What you just described of, day one guys with UNO growing in this process, growing during the climb is big with why there's been such success this year with Omaha. And you see it at some of the other premier programs. I mean, yes, Wisconsin, they lost a lot, but what they either added or had in the cupboard, case in point, Wisconsin's a whole different team. It's not 50-45. I mean, hell, they scored 90 points 4 or 5 times this year. They kind of changed themselves because of the right combination. The Tanji / guys that have been part of the Wisconsin program. So that's a need for Nebraska, is to have those high school start finding and retaining some guys that can be difference makers at the high school level, but also go find the Griesels, the Derek Walkers of the world. And I wasn't intentionally eavesdropping, but I was on press row for the state basketball on Friday doing the semis, and heard a couple of fantastic basketball minds having a discussion about what philosophy could be or should be. Do you take the top Nebraska kid if you can get him, or take a Nebraska kid every year moving forward if you're Fred as part of your class to kind of rekindle that in-state recruiting? When Nebraska was killing it on the hardwood 30 years ago, it was a littered roster of Nebraska guys. Or right around there, between Chubbuck and Pikowski and Strick and Boone and Badgett. I mean, and then you had the Benson Bunny, who went to Iowa and was great with Woolridge. I mean, you had at one point in time all local, and it was cool. You got to kind of start figuring out a way to go back that route. But right now, there's a lot of guys that want to go to Omaha from Nebraska high schools, and a handful of them are good enough to do it. There's a handful of guys that end up at Creighton, or at least there's a bit of a in-state pipeline to Creighton, comparatively speaking. I know Fred got Frager last year, reclassified him, but that was the first dude since Mielheisen to come out of a Lincoln high school to go play at Nebraska.
Well, wow. Is the heart of this conversation not a little bit how to go? I don't want to say bargain shopping. It's not the right way to put it, but how to get decent value on guys that are 3 through 8 on your roster in terms of payment. Like the guys that are filling out the roster, that's what it comes down to. I think Fred's had good players on his team year in, year out, except maybe year one. I mean, there's been a couple of guys on the team where you go, you like that. It comes down to the 3 through 8, 4 through 8, whatever you want to say. Those guys that are further down on the roster where I don't think you've been getting good value in the transfer portal. So I think the question you have to ask is, how do you get better value? Is it go into the high school kids and finding some guys before they're quote unquote ready so that you can get value out of those guys? So you're not paying them like you're paying a guy that you have to go find in the transfer portal. That's kind of the question to me, is how do you get that value deeper in your roster?
Yeah. And there's, part of like Fred's philosophy is he cares about the top 8. So if you're from 9 to 13 or now moving forward 9 to 15, he's probably not really interested in you because he's kind of lived in the world of you can churn that top 8 over. Listen, they were aggressive in the portal. They didn't win. And then they panicked because they had roster spots to fill and pieces just didn't fit together.
Yep.
So hopefully that's the lesson they learned. And you identify, we need a point guard, a solid point guard. We need a wing guy. We need a 5-man. We know that we're going to have Mass back. So this is what he gives us. It's you hope this past year they learned from how they put the roster together. But then, the player that they pay the most has got to be one of your best players consistently, and that'll go a long way from, curing the locker room or other things that ailed this team, where there were a lot of times this year they didn't look like, they liked each other. It's just GM Fred and head coach Fred need to align better in this offseason, because this is a huge offseason for Nebraska, because there is more money out in the market than there's ever been. And there's 2 extra scholarship spots around the country of schools that want to go to 15. Is what is your selling point? I don't think you can sell, hey, I'm Fred Hoiberg. You can't sell that. You can sell Nebraska, and then you got to sell something else. So this will be the GM Fred Hoiberg with his staff is going to have to have a monster offseason to help the coach Fred Hoiberg and his staff coming up in the fall and winter.
Yeah, I know I talked about this, I think, last week a little bit, but I was still amused, speaking of general managers, that Matt Aldomasa is the general manager for the St. John's basketball team. And they said after the game that this team was not built on NIL and transfer portal or something along those lines. I thought, okay, I don't know how you define NIL, but okay, good on you. But yeah, Abdel Massa is the GM for Rick Pitino, and he's the St. John's guy. But that's just an aside. I just reminded about that GM position. So
they've got the right dudes.
Yeah, and there's guys that got paid at St. John's, but it wasn't like, they have $1 million AJ store. I think part of the portal is, and Elijah brought this up, Bill, you brought this up, I heard Schmidt talk about it, is just getting the right guy. The right guy doesn't need to be a $2 million guy. He needs to be the right guy for your program that is a fit to fit into the kind of offense you want, where it's a shooter-based offense, where you put shooters on the floor, that kind of thing. I think sometimes people are like, oh, man, they paid a ton for the roster. No, they actually were just smart in building their roster. And, yeah, guys got paid, but they paid the right guys. That's where Nebraska, I think, failed this year, is they ended up with the wrong guys that had to get paid.
And they had the wrong guys sitting out. I think Reich Mask sitting out for the injury, I think that was pretty costly, because he's such a versatile player to be able to go outside, hit the three, and play inside, and with a little more efficiency inside 5 feet than Nebraska played with this year. I've never seen the team collectively miss so many shots inside that little block charge circle like Nebraska does. And I think Mast would have made a difference on this year's team.
Big time. They're dancing if he's back.
Without question. And I think just his presence too, maybe, he's in the locker room, but having a presence in uniform as opposed to street clothes is a big difference. So if he does come back, and all indications are that he is, there was that flirting last year that he was going to go back overseas and play professional ball, then the injury, the surgery, it would appear as though he does return. And that will be huge for what Fred Hoiberg wants to do on the floor and have in the locker room, but he's got to have the right pieces around him next year. Right now, I'm not going to do this. I'll throw this out there for somebody else, because I'm going to watch basketball and enjoy it, but it would be interesting to watch the NCAA tournament, chart those players from seeds 10 and south, and just find out where they are next year. Those players who are on the mid-major squads that won their conference tournament, they wouldn't have made it without the AQ. Where do those star players end up next year? What rosters will they be on? That would be an interesting study. And again, I'm not going to do it.
Well, it's, like in the Summit League, where Omaha is, it basically is, if you make all Summit League, you're gone the next year. Because this will be the 5th straight year the player of the year is playing somewhere else, from Max Asmus to Shireman to Zeke Mayo to now Markel Sutton at Omaha.
Well, good on them.
Well, good on them, yeah, because they're going to get paid, and they bet on themselves, and they got better in their career so they can have that kind of opportunity. It's I don't know, man. More and more coaches are speaking out about it. They opened up Pandora's box when they allowed the free transfers, and there's no going back. And it's just, you have to play the game. You can't bitch about it publicly, because it's the game. Privately, you're bitching up a storm about this is awful for the sport. But, whoever plays it well and smartly is victorious. It almost seems like guys there is as many good stories about how to build a roster in basketball this year than there are bad stories, whether it be Rutgers or Kansas State or other places where they spent a lot of money and they finish 500 or below.
Some of those big money transfers, Coleman Hawkins, Hunter Dickinson, left a lot to be desired this year.
Well, Hawkins admit the NIL was a factor in why he didn't play well? Didn't he say that?
Kind of the pressure from the money.
Yeah, the pressure of it. Yeah.
I couldn't understand Coleman between sobs, so I'm glad you were able to translate. A little rude. Sorry.
That was a hard watch. It was, because there's the two sides of it where, yeah, you went for money, but no one wants to play that poorly throughout the season. And sure, I'm sure his 401k is going to be looking better than a lot of people's 25 years from now, because assuming he made wise financial decisions with that money, good for him. It's going to be good for his life. And you went for the money, but you got to feel bad for a guy kind of succumbing to that kind of pressure.
Well, I mean, get used to it, because you're going to put it on yourself moving forward when you play pro ball. I mean,
and it got his coach on the hot seat. 2 years ago they're in the Final Four, and now Jerome Tang is, is he long for Manhattan because of, NIL mismanagement? I don't know.
I've always marveled at K-State and their JUCO / recruiting success. They come out of nowhere and have an amazing year or two, and they're always just kind of hovering with a run, right? So
it just speaks to how well you have to nail it in the portal. And just one final thought here. It's not really on topic with what we've been talking about. I do wonder if we're going to look back 5 years from now, 10 years from now at this era and just kind of have that what if question with all the guys from Nebraska. I don't know how achievable it could have been to get all of them together, but you look at Tanji, you look at Salas, Chucky Hepburn, William Kyle, Fiddler, Shireman, maybe Isaac Trout, like the talent that's around Nebraska. I do wonder if you're going to look back and ask that what if question. What if all those guys were playing together at a college? Maybe not even Nebraska, just what if?
It'd have been really cool to see that. And they all have different roles. They're all not the guy. Some are, but some of them come off the bench. And
I think it's a team that would have played well together. On paper, I look at that team of the Nebraska guys and go, I think that could be a good team on paper.
I think it'd be a really good team.
Yeah.
But look, that's the history of Nebraska basketball. You go back to, what was it, the class of 82, Vic Lazzaretti and Kerry Trotter at Creighton Prep, and you had Ron Kellogg, Cedric Hunter in that class, Bill Jackman, and Jackman went to Duke, Trotter, Lazzaretti, then went to Marquette, Cedric Hunter was at Kansas. Nebraska basketball forever has not been able to keep a solid class of great high school players to en masse go to Nebraska. Now, you mentioned the Chubbuck and the Strick, and Pikowski came from Rapid City and came from the region.
Close
and there
enough.
was an era in there with of all people, Danny Nee, was able to keep that band together. But you go back in time, way back in time, and there's that class of great players. They all played in the state tournament that same year. Some of the best basketball. I know we had a great basketball state boys tournament this year. But that 82, 83 class was amazing basketball at the Devaney Center. And it was must see. It didn't matter if your team was playing. It was just a matter of you wanted to go watch great basketball. But Jackman went to Duke and then transferred back to Nebraska. But it's just been symptomatic, other than that page in time with Danny Nee, where the best of the best, they went elsewhere. And it's still happening to this day.
I do wonder if 5 years from now we're going to be having the same what if conversation with a guy like Bryson Ball. Had a fantastic weekend in the state tournament. By the way, hats off to Papio South taking home the title yesterday. I wonder if you're going to have that same conversation with the guy that goes and plays 3 years at SDSU and ends up being a big name in the portal.
So I like Bryson a lot. I've seen him forever. He's physically, he's going to have to put on some weight, because he'll be playing against grown men and people will put their hands on him, but he can shoot and he's going to the ideal system. So yeah, in a couple of years, does he follow his sister and find his way back to Nebraska? I think one thing back to the 90s, when you had the great Omaha players and Woolridge was in there as well, is Nebraska gave kids a reason to stay home.
That's fair.
Nebraska was going to the NCAA tournament. They were exciting. They were one of the best teams in the Big 8 and then transitioning into the Big 12. So they gave people a reason to stay home, they also had an elite recruiter who wasn't worried about getting dirty. And that was Jimmy Williams. Jimmy Williams could set up the in-state guys and then drop down to Mexico, Missouri, or Raytown and grab a Belcher and a Lou, and you were cleaning up at home. Nebraska basketball has to give a reason other than money for guys to stay home. And you look at Creighton, like Jason Green, who played at Millard North, had a great Big East tournament. I don't know that he had a Nebraska passion, being an Omaha kid. But even like Shireman's family, Nebraska fans. He goes to Creighton. Why? Because Creighton is winning. Creighton is sending guys to the league. They're developing. You got to give in-state guys a reason other than, hey, we'll give you a lot of money to come. If I come to Nebraska as a John Tonje, for example, who didn't feel wanted at Mizzou last year, was injured, and Nebraska wasn't involved with him in this go around. They tried between Colorado State and Missouri, but there was not a ton of interest on, I think, on both sides. Why would you come here? Okay. Am I going to the NCAA tournament? Is that almost a guarantee? And are you going to help me get to the league? Now, Fred could probably give you some examples of that, but guys want to get paid, but they also want to win.
And you have more consistency from the winning aspect at a Creighton for sure, and some of these other options that have been on the table for him. But that's a great point with Coach Williams. You had Jeff Smith, that was an in-state guy that knew all the connections and contacts with the Omaha, Lincoln, and Central part of the state region, plus the Chubbucks and the Pikowskis and the Markowskis of the world. So,
I give Fred a ton of credit because, Miles kind of sullied the waters in Omaha with a rope.
Yeah.
And it took a while to get that going again. And Fred and Nate Lesnar really recruit this state hard. I mean, Nate was hanging out at the state basketball this week. They came, and I remember Nate sat up at the Metro Conference tournament for 8 hours. They're trying. They went hard after William Kyle III. Man, they thought they had him. They were in his living room, and he goes to UCLA. I mentioned this, I think, last week on the show. He walks into Pauley Pavilion, and they go, "Hey, look up in the rafters." And there's banner after banner after banner, and it's not an apple orchard; it's a national championship factory.
Wow.
Yeah, I got hollered at by Coach Nee one day because I said, "Man, there's a lot of banners up there. It looks like an apple orchard."
His eyes squinted.
He said, "You little fucker."
Yeah. It's Joe Pesci, baby. I love it. Sharpie, I know you got some duties to go handle for the selection show. Give us a prediction before you pop out on where you're heading later this week
and the opponent.
I think Omaha has got to the 15 line. Mm-hmm. So the two that they will play, because you love storylines, Cleveland, Michigan State, Frankie Fiddler against his old mates.
Okay.
They I stopped by their practice yesterday, and their head coach, Chris Crutchfield, who, I'm sure that his name's going to pop up here in this coaching cycle. Maybe if he has another good year, he's at his alma mater, so it's a little bit different how he looks at it. His name will start to pop up. But he did say one thing very interesting yesterday to this team, and it's all about matchups, but Omaha's playing really, really well. Is he said, start thinking about what it takes for a 15 to beat a 2, because it has been done and it will be done. So in your mind, think about what it takes for a 15 to beat a 2. I thought that was pretty cool. But I hope people get to see Omaha. They're one of the 16 live CBS sites today.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
That'll be Gary Sharp, voice of Mavs basketball in the white Adidas Omaha gear.
Stormtrooper.
Well, okay, so one quick thing. I will not be wearing the pants that come with the sweatsuit because they are built for basketball players. Like everything that we have gotten, it might be like extra large or 2X, but it goes down to your knees.
Sure.
Like they don't account for the normal body. So I've got like all this baggy clothes. I mean, I love the gear, but it's all like baggy. It looks much different on the players than it looks on the radio guy. But I thank you guys for the support.
Enjoy the day, Gary.
Everybody else, and enjoy Selection Sunday. It is probably the Super Bowl, and then like Selection Sunday, Kentucky Derby of like things in this sports world that we are on the calendar that we all watch as one, right?
Oh,
It
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
No, it's right there.
Selection Sunday, opening weekend of the NCAA tournament. I mean, it's a week that's unlike any other.
Yeah, and the thing that sucks is I thought we were going to get there that all 3 Division I teams would be in the tournament, and how cool would that be?
Next year.
Yeah, next year. Let's
It's
hope.
always next year.
Hey, thanks, guys.
All right. See you, Gary.
Appreciate you. There he is, the Iron Horse. Gary Sharp with us. The Sunday Live Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe. Those subscription numbers, we're not charging you. We don't want to charge you. We won't charge you, but those numbers keep going up. We appreciate that. Tell all your friends that love Big Red Sports to check us out 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 on KFOR and different affiliates across the state on the Average Joe Radio Network. And, of course, always on YouTube. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow on Twitter. Can watch that way, AJ Sports Radio, and hear us and make us part of your lineup on demand on your time with Spotify and iTunes. Proud of Fairbury's Bill Doleman. That's Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Guys, few minutes left. Are you getting to – I mean, I know you and Mississippi Queen are going to be watching in SEC country. Bill, Selection Sunday. Elijah, you getting the grill fired up. I've been ordered by Mama and Junior. Junior right now is at Lazari's making pizzas galore for Selection Sunday for Lincoln folks when they get the old hankering of some pizza, not wanting them to cook at home, but he wants me to grill later. So we'll have a little bit warmer weather, and meat is in the fridge ready to go later. So that's kind of our thing. They'll both be wearing that green in their Spartan gear because they are adopted Spartan fans. And I'll just find somebody to pick and hopefully be right with some of my Final Four for a third year in a row.
I don't know who's going to be the top seeds. I think Auburn is still going to be a number 1 just because of what they've done all season long. But losing 3 of their last 4, like I said, that's going to give cause for concern. It's one thing to kind of skate into the NCAA tournament like so many teams used to do during their conference tourney. Big East was notorious for that when they were getting 8, 9 teams in, and then Syracuse would be the number 1 seed, and then they'd skate out on Thursday, right? Same thing was always talked about in the ACC with Duke and when Carolina had it rolling. But I don't think you want to be stumbling toward the finish of the regular season and the conference tournament and then turn it on as the number 1 seed when teams are seeing how you can be beaten at this time of year. I think, like I said earlier, I think Texas A&M exposed Auburn. But they might still be, that said, they might still be a 1. Florida's got it going on right now. If they win the SEC, I think maybe the winner of the SEC is going to get a 1 seed. I think Houston's going to get a 1 seed.
You think they'll nudge out Duke or Florida or Auburn?
Well, that's the question. Duke's going to be a 1. I think Houston could be a 1 just because you won the Big 12. Right, you won the Big 12 on that Louis Vuitton floor that they had out going on.
I think you've got Florida, Tennessee, Auburn, Houston. Excuse me. I think you have Duke, Tennessee, Florida, Houston. Those are your 4. I think. Do you think Auburn falls or no?
No, I think Auburn's put enough of a body of work together this season.
They're the 1 seed over Houston,
right,
and your 2 seeds are St. John's, Michigan State, in Houston. Those are your 3 of your 4 2 seeds.
Well, and then Tennessee. I've got Tennessee down on the 2 line.
Okay. Well, I think
what if they win the SEC?
8.
What if Tennessee wins the SEC?
I still think they're a 2. We'll see.
Well, they just went. I mean, they just beat Auburn, and they would have beaten Florida. Can you call your old buddy Rick Barnes up for next Sunday? Sunday Live?
Yeah, I'm sure he'd do that.
He can do stand-up hour.
To be clear with you guys, like the 1-2 seed line, okay, all those teams are great. They're all going to favorable draws. I'm much more interested in like the potential Cinderella stories and who the matchups are. Like, who does Colorado State get matched up with? They're the hottest team in America right now. Who does Colorado State get? Because I don't think anyone wants to get Colorado State in the first round. Like, I love seeing those lower seeds. I mean, Omaha as well, I think. What is their matchup like in the first round? I look at High Point. Could be a potential Cinderella team. Like, who do these teams get matched up with? The teams that are from like 9 down to 14, even 15. Who are their matchups? Because matchups make the story there. And if you get a favorable draw in terms of just stylistic matchup wise, that's what I get really curious about on Selection Sunday, because there's nothing better than filling out the bracket and calling that 14-3 upset, and you get to brag to all your friends in the bracket pool like, yeah, I know ball.
That's code for Elijah's beelining to the casino Wednesday night.
No. This time of year, I stay away from it. There's too much madness, but yeah. I will find a couple money bracket pools and try to pull some upset picks in those and be the smart one.
Well, after they win yesterday, Colorado State's Nico Medved is all of a sudden on the radar for some of the jobs that are open, most notably Minnesota. And Nico Medved and Craig Smith were both assistant coaches to Tim Miles at Colorado State. So all their names, all three of those names, have always been attached to the Minnesota job. Now that Nico Medved is in that mix, so he might be another one that is coaching his final game at where he's been there a long time, but he might be coaching for a job at a higher level. Who knows? I don't think it's going to be Iowa. Be interesting about, UNLV opened up with Kevin Kruger getting fired, Lon Kruger's son. That might be a place where a Craig Smith or a Fran McCaffrey. I
would love it. I mean, think back in the day, and one of my favorite teams ever. I mean, I've got the 94 Nebraska basketball team, and the 91 team was part of my childhood that I loved. Fab Five, of course, that you can lay out that squad. I really enjoyed them, but that UNLV team with Augman and Anderson Hunt and Greg Anthony and Augman and Larry Johnson.
LJ.
LJ and then LeVar Eccles, I think. I mean, they were a party. They were sitting in hot tubs. They were a wad of cash. They're college kids. Larry Johnson goes from JUCO. My first boss in South Dakota did Larry Johnson's games when he was in JUCO, but he comes back for a second year because he's probably making more than the lottery minimum in the NBA. So you get
they really knew how to work the NIL back then.
They did, but Vegas is and Vegas could be an incredible. I mean, they've got the history with the Armin Gillian squad in '87. Tark, I loved Tark. Got a kick out of him, but they should be incredible. They should do what BYU's. They should be able to do what BYU's doing and just spend with reckless abandon and just put a incredible payroll together, and UNLV should be in the dance every year.
There's a little bit Las Vegas is a lot like Lincoln. How about that for a statement?
Tell me
well,
how.
Look, you have some really high level high school programs. Bishop Gorman is one of the best high school athletic programs in the entire country. They've also Findlay Prep, I think is what it was. It was a prep school, might still be in business, that was started out there to be a basketball factory, essentially. And you've got great talent, but they've not been able to capitalize on the glory days of yesteryear when, LA or Las Vegas was so much fun, where if you had a homegrown talent, they just stayed and played, right? And played. And I mean that in a lot of different ways. But those great high school players in the area no longer view UNLV as the place to go. Shabazz Muhammad was a player, about 15 years ago or so.
UCLA
number one player in the country, and he played on a Gorman team that had 5 Division I players in it, starting 5. its head coach was I want to say Mike Rice, but may not be wrong. But Dave Rice became the head coach at UNLV. His brother was the head coach at Gorman. You would think that they would just say, "Here you go. Here's your starting 5 for the next 2 or 3 years." But instead, Muhammad goes to UCLA, in part because, that's an Adidas school and UNLV's a Nike school, and there were some things going on behind the scenes. And this is pre-NIL. But you couldn't keep the best players in Vegas to go to Vegas. Nebraska, the University of Nebraska, Big Ten school, forever has had a hard time creating a pipeline from Omaha and other places around the state where the best players are to keep them in to play at dear old Nebraska U. Yes, there's a lot of reason to go play at Creighton. Omaha's a great city. It's got a great venue. It's had great success with Dana Altman and go back to Tom Apke and Dana Altman and Greg McDermott now. So there's some history there, and those players go there. Omaha, is going to get maybe those 3-star guys, out of the city to go play for Chris Cartsfield. But there's no traction. The same thing is happening to UNLV right now. They have just not been able to maintain the best players in their city to continue to play for dear old UNLVU and have the fun like they had back in the 80s and early 90s.
Well, and they've not had that year, that kind of that breakthrough year where it's cool again to go to UNLV, or you want to go to UNLV.
Lon Kruger had it going on for a while too. And there was that one magical run. Billy Bano was the head coach back in like 94 or 5, 6, somewhere in there. And Las Vegas was electric for the Mountain West Conference tournament. And Bano had it going on for one season, and that was about it. Lon Kruger did very well.
I liked
There's
Lon.
no question, and that's why Kevin got the job, but he couldn't replicate his dad's success. But keeping players in Vegas, it doesn't stay in Vegas. Great talent doesn't stay in Vegas. Anyway.
We'll wind it down. Husker baseball needs to make it happen today.
Oh,
You're
That
waiting
was a
for
bad
them
loss
to,
yesterday.
yeah, you're waiting for it to flip, and sooner rather than later, right?
It's time to panic.
Okay.
It's time to panic with the Husker baseball team. That's where I'm at. They don't have the bats to let their pitchers settle into their roles. And maybe there's a point a month from now where the pitchers settle in. You have a clear rotation. You have a pecking order in the bullpen. Maybe that comes a month from now. You can't do it while your hitters are striking out at the rate they are.
They're whiffing 10, 11 times a game. And I know they average 8, but every time I look at the box score, it's 10. It's 11.
They left 12 on base last night.
My God.
And they give up the big inning. Remember the first game against Washington? You give up 5 in the first inning of that series, and then you give up 3 and then 6 last night. They are close sometimes, but then they just let it either slip away early, mid, late. The big innings have really done them in, and leaving 12 men on base again last night. That devastating. Horn's now 0-3.
Yeah.
Well, and I said it, I think it was 2 weeks ago whenever we got news of the McConaughey injury. You have to be an offense right now that to have a chance in a baseball game is putting up 6+ runs every single game. 7, 8 runs is what you got to put up to give yourself a fighting chance. That's not sustainable in baseball. So you can look at the hitting, you can look at the pitching. It's both right now. There's issues on both sides, and it's not a recipe for a winning baseball program. I have massive concerns. I think it's panic time. I think it's time to push that panic button because you got USC next weekend. And midweek, you got Pepperdine. They're not very good. You probably do all right there. But
you better do all right there.
Yeah, you have to. But
Bill's coming across the screen.
I look at USC next week and I go, I have massive concerns there. They're just not a great baseball team right now. And they might figure it out as the Big Ten season goes along because they're not going to be playing good teams. That's not a team that's going to make it out of a regional.
We got to get to
a regional.
You've already lost 2 games to a Big Ten opponent in Washington. You've lost 2 games to UCLA with a chance to get swept. You've got USC, who's a 500 club, on the back end of this 10-day road trip. I look at Will Bolt. I picture him at the beginning of the season. He's got this notebook, or he's got this plan, right, and everything. And he looks at his notes and goes, "What the hell happened? Where did it go wrong?" Because it looked like it was all set up to be a top 25 team. It was a top 25 team at the beginning of the season. You've got a Friday night starter that is one of the best in the country. You figure you're going to have a productive offense, but it's something somewhere along the way. Page just got ripped out of the script for the season, and injuries have hurt. Silent bats have hurt, and
Bullpen.
Bullpen. You just hope that there is a turnaround because Big Ten baseball is certainly winnable, but right now your first 2 series in conference play, you've lost at least 2 games.
We'll be back at it tomorrow with the Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe. Appreciate you all for checking us out with the Sunday Live. Can follow and like and subscribe on YouTube, Average Joe Sports Show, and then also Twitter, AJ Sports Radio, Spotify, iTunes, 7 days a week. We appreciate you for checking us out Monday through Friday, 4 to 6, radio and YouTube and Twitter, and then weekend edition, 7:45-ish. If you want to find us on Saturdays, Sundays, yes, 10:30, the live show. Appreciate it. Sharpie off to Mavs dancing time. Bill, be good and safe down in SEC country.
Yep, heading off to New Orleans this afternoon to get myself some beads.
All right. Dear Lord. Doleman is going for bead action. That's hilarious. Elijah, you and I can't wash enough acid in our eyes for that visual. So we'll just go wander in traffic today on a Sunday. All right.
Sounds lovely.
Be good. That's Elijah Herbel, Bill Doleman, Chris Schmidt. Talk to you tomorrow with the Average Joe Sports Show.